got Matt and Nicky on here, the host of Eagle Up, a show we launched in the playoffs last year. Matt and Nicky, what's up, fellas?
What's going on, my guy? How's everything?
What's
Good.
going on, everyone?
Love it. Love having you guys on here. Appreciate you jumping on to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Rob, I didn't know you were going to be on this podcast.
Yeah, been a little MIA, but things have been a little busy. Happy to be here, though. I mean, Cody, I know this is our third year recording together, so third season, kicking off the third season as roster up continues to grow. Yeah, happy to do it tonight with the Eagles, starting off the 2022-2023 season.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Third year, first with the Birds.
Yeah, starting it off with the Birds.
It's a big year.
It's crazy. We're adding some big markets. We're adding some big markets right now. Adding the Eagles. We're gonna get into it. So I want to kind of run through a couple things. I'll remove my bias and everything when we kicked off the show and everything. But you guys know I'm a Dallas fan. I think you guys were stunned at that, but I give some unbiased opinions.
We don't have to go there. We can just get into the Birds.
I think you're actually going to like a lot of what I have to say. Look on the bright side. At least with this show, my job is literally not to really care about Dallas. So there's at least some good perspective there, right? But I kind of want to kick it off reviewing 2021 just a little bit. You guys put out a couple off-season shows, a great draft recap. So I don't want to dive too deep into this. I just want to hit on a couple highlights of some things that I really like from 2021. And I kind of want to get your opinions on it. So obviously last year, you guys had Nick Sirianni, first year rookie head coach. And it was going to be interesting to see what he did, right? He did some good things in Indy. We know that he was adaptive, but it's going to be interesting to see how he actually translated that over as he became a head coach. So some good things that I noticed out of Sirianni was truly those signs of adaptability. So when I look at the Eagles last season, they were picked to finish last. I think they were only favored in about 4 or 5 games going into the 2021 season. And we know the run they made in the second half of the season really got hot. And part of that was due to the adjustments that Sirianni made on the offensive side of the ball. So before I kind of run through like a couple metrics and everything that I want to chat about, Matt, why don't you lead us off and then toss it over to Nicky? Give me like your 30 seconds on what you liked about last season and versus what you didn't like out of Nick Sirianni.
Well, you said it best. What I liked the most was that he was able to change halfway through the year. I mean, I know that you're going to get into some stats, but the ability to see where kind of his team was going and where his quarterback especially was playing. And after I think we started about 2-5 when we really started to run the ball a lot, really got the ground running, kind of settled Jalen Hurts in a little bit. And then plus, look, we might benefit from this year as well, but the schedule was very favorable. But you can't deny the fact that in the games that we were supposed to win, we won, right? Excluding the Giant game. But he was able to make a run, make the right play calls, and get us to the playoffs and get this team, the young talent on this team, some experience in the playoffs, and especially for him and his young coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly what kind of you said, Cody. His ability to adapt as a first year head coach, kind of make that transition mid-season and see, we're going down a path that's not really working, and then able to kind of just switch it is remarkable, in my opinion, as a rookie head coach. I'm very excited to see where he goes. Now with all this talent that we've added, and with Jalen Hurts another year in his offense. I mean, it's I hope that helps Jalen move forward. But I think that's going to be big for us. Is another year of experience is huge for us, and I think Sirianni's going to do well. I'm happy with what he did, and I'm happy that we have him going forward.
Yeah, that was the most impressive part, right? So they've had just like a tough run of games there to kind of kick off the season, sitting there at 2-5. What was interesting is he actually brought a very high pass rate over to the Eagles, and they had the third highest pass rate early on, and that actually created for them the third most light boxes by week 7. And a lot of times you see coaches bang their heads up against the wall. I know we kind of joke about Dallas with McCarthy. That's what it feels like. They just inevitably bang their heads up against the wall, right? And I think that's what eventually leads them to always get found out and exposed towards the end of the season, regardless of how talented they are. You look at the Eagles coming into this year, I think they're very, very talented. Last year they had some talent, but there was some clear weaknesses, and Sirianni adjusted throughout the season to cover those up, right? And so then they began to run the ball more. A lot of people talk about establishing the run, etc. I do disagree with that methodology a lot of times, because it's like, don't beat your head against a brick wall. If you can throw it, throw it. They got to the point where they were facing the third most light boxes, and you had Hurts back there who can just run the ball like crazy, right? And so then they shifted to a much more run heavy scheme versus light boxes and started running the ball over half the time. And they had a really good success rate. And then versus heavy boxes, they ran the ball about 70% of the time. Right. So then they became kind of the 10th most run heavy in that scenario, which means as the boxes got heavier, sure, you're likely in short yardage situations, but Sirianni still didn't bang his head against the wall. He was like, okay, we can run some play action. We can throw this. I thought that was what I took away as the most impressive metric from him out of a rookie head coach, because a lot of times you see guys have to step back and take a full off season to adjust. So as we look towards 2022, what type of adjustments are you looking for? Just are you guys expecting them to come out and throw the ball more like they did now that you've added AJ Brown? Are you guys expecting them to lean back into the run, or do you think he'll continue to go game to game and make it situational?
I'm actually really curious to see. I mean, so far, what I've heard from camp is that, we're really kind of working on the pass heavy to, get Jalen Hurts more looks in the pass game. So I'm actually that was one of the biggest things I was curious to see coming out of the gate in week 1, just to see if, with Devontae Smith another year under his belt, adding AJ Brown, having Dallas Goedert really opens up the pass game for us this year. And Jalen Hurts can kind of take that step forward in the pass game. I would like to see that, because, I feel like in this league, you really need to have that pass game to go.
I think that they're going to use the run more this year to establish maybe the big plays downfield and the play action, and especially the backs coming out of the backfield. I think they're going to heavily lean on Sanders and Gainwell as pass catchers. Sanders hasn't really shown us much pass catching ability, but Gainwell has definitely given us confidence that he can come out of that backfield and get the passes thrown to him. But with the amount of talent that's on this offensive side of the ball for Hurts, it's really going to be important for him to go through his progressions, to see those second and third progressions, because Devontae Smith, most of his routes were 15 yards downfield and back, and especially AJ Brown opening up that field for him. Goddard and Smith are going to have field days in the middle of the field, and obviously Brown should have a huge year that he is obviously expected to have. But it's very going to be exciting to see on the offensive side and see what Jalen Hurts can kind of bring us, and kind of see where he takes the next step. Because I think the 3 biggest guys that everyone's eyes are looking on is obviously Jalen Hurts, but Sirianni and Gannon as a whole, because this front office and Howie Roseman has put the team together that these guys have to either show up, or they're most likely going to be looking on the outside in. So, it's going to be a good, fun year for us, and I can't wait to get after it.
Yeah, I think just going off of one of the things you just said there, Matt, is Sirianni kind of showed last year, like we just touched on, that he does stick to his guns. He sticks to his game plan. He stuck to the run game a whole lot last year. And what you just said, that, you think the run game's going to open up the pass game, I completely agree. You add a game breaker like AJ Brown to your offense that already was one of the best running offenses in the league. It just opens up the field a little bit more. He's someone that we've seen the past couple of years get behind the secondary, get behind the defense, open that up a little bit. And what I'm most curious to see is where Jalen Hurts can throw the ball. I think that was one of his biggest questions in college, just coming out of college, even in college when Tua won the job at Alabama. I think a lot of people question Jalen Hurts' ability to throw the ball. I think we've seen him with that ability. Devontae Smith really didn't have a bad year by any means last year. I think he did all right for the situation he was in, but I'm really curious to see what Jalen Hurts does getting these guys the ball, but also what second year Devontae Smith can do with having a little less pressure on him on the outside with AJ Brown, the addition of AJ Brown. And we talked last year, I remember during the Eagles-Bucks playoff review, and we said the reason we're giving the Eagles a chance to win that game is because Jalen Hurts is an absolute gamer. And I love that about him. Always have loved that about him. So I think with a really solid offense, a coach that seems to know what he's doing and sticks to his guns, puts his players in the best position to succeed. I'm pretty excited to watch what the Eagles can do. I think they're gonna surprise a lot of people, potentially with a little playoff run here.
It's going to be do you guys think there's going to be any problems with distribution? I'll keep it with you, Rob, because on this point right here, you think there's going to be any problems with distribution across the board offensively? So you got Hurts, who's going to run the ball quite a bit, right? Do you think there's going to be a problem keeping people happy, or is that just kind of, as long as you're winning, right? Because I think at this point, AJ Brown, he's super explosive, but his stats are going to probably be like 3 catches for 70 yards and potentially a touchdown. So it's going to be interesting to see how the ball gets spread around if Hurts is still skewing a little more run heavy, he's scrambling and spreading the ball around. So how do you think they're going to be able to utilize those guys?
I think that's always the question, right? When you add another superstar to a even young offense, you always worry, you know, is that superstar going to get on the quarterback to give him the ball a little bit more? Are they going to be able to distribute to the guys that they already established in this offense? I don't know. I mean, I don't know too much about the depth of Nick Sirianni's offense, but I do expect a competitive Eagles team. And honestly, I think AJ Brown has a little bit to prove this year. I know he was in and out of injury last year, disappointed a little bit with what people expected. And I think he looks at himself as one of the top receivers in the league, whether that's true or not. Right. Big contract. He's got to prove it. So this is the year, I think, maybe takes those strides, maybe shows people what he's really worth, which I think is a really solid receiver. But then on the other side, you have Devonta Smith, who I also think is a fantastic receiver. I mean, he killed it in college, pretty good year last year with, you know, like I said, what he was given. I don't think, I mean, I hate when that happens. I hate when you have a really talented offense, a lot of expectations, and they fall apart because of selfish thoughts, selfish play, stuff like that. So for the Eagles' sake, I hope that they can figure it out. I hope that, you know, and I do think they will. Jalen Hurts is a leader. I think he'll get control of that locker room, control those guys. And they're all young. I mean, even AJ Brown, he's a young superstar wide receiver, right? So I think that plays into it too. These guys want to grow together. They want to be on this team for years to come, make some noise in the NFC. So I think there's definitely the possibility, definitely the question mark that everyone's probably curious about. And I'm curious to hear what Matt and Nick have to say about it. But I think if they get their head on straight, I think this can be a really good team.
Coming from a team that hasn't had 1,000-yard receiver since Jeremy Maclin, I think this year with these two guys, it's a disappointment if both of them don't go over. And honestly, that's going to be, it most likely probably will be on Jalen Hurts' shoulders, if anything. I don't really think it's going to be a play calling issue. These guys are going to get their chances, and it's going to be Jalen Hurts' responsibility to get them the ball. And obviously you have Goddard and you have the backfield that, you know, we have a committee, but these guys should go over 1,000 yards, especially with the year Devontae Smith's coming off of, and obviously the expectations that AJ Brown has as a whole, as a league.
Yeah, I totally agree with Matt. I mean, I also, at the end of the day, like I said pre-show, I mean, it totally comes down to, you know, the expectations and the growth of Jalen Hurts. You know, the front office has done everything they can to put the most talent around him. They built up the defense. You know, this is a good team. This is a team that's ready to make a run. And I really just think it lives and dies on Jalen Hurts.
It really does. A lot of expectations on him. The toughest progression in the NFL is always going to be reading defenses, getting to, you know, your second, third, fourth progressions. I think that's what everyone's looking for. Like, I was surprised at the arm talent last year. Like, some of those deep balls he was throwing, I mean, there's some crazy 50-yard bombs he was launching down the field to some of those guys. So that's not really a problem. I do think where he compensates for that is when you have a dual threat quarterback that hits like he's a tight end. I mean, that's also an advantage. So even if he takes like some minor progressions in terms of distributing the ball and becoming a better overall pocket passer, I think that's going to go a long ways because you guys are naturally going to be able to spread the field. So a lot does hinge on Hurts there. You know, a couple final stats that I thought were interesting for Hurts himself was if he is facing heavier boxes, last year on average, he was actually first in yards per attempt against heavy boxes. I like that because that shows an aggressive offense. I think that also is part of the importance of AJ Brown. If you're looking at a guy in single coverage that can beat you downfield, and obviously Smith and Brown could both beat you downfield, being first in yards per attempt against heavy boxes, I think, and top 5 in success rate against them is really indicative of the Eagles looking at Jalen Hurts and saying, okay, if we're going to commit to this guy, let's give him the best chance possible to succeed. Were you guys surprised at all at the commitment to Jalen Hurts?
No, not really, especially with, bringing in AJ Brown. I mean, I know that
Mhm.
friendship goes pretty strong, past the game. So no, I wasn't, I felt like, and I also felt at the end of last year, the front office was very kind of in on Jalen, and, I'm happy. I think he played well down the stretch last year. And I think that, I think the decision was a good one to stay behind him. I mean, going forward, it's going to be one game at a time, and, we'll see where we're at the end of the year, but I'm with it.
No, I was definitely happy. I do think that they probably tried to dabble in the Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson drama. Obviously, what team probably didn't? Who was looking maybe to upgrade their quarterback? But I was happy where we went. The quarterback position and the running back position are averaging less than like 15 million against the salary cap, and that's how you're able to build these teams, and you're able to progress your quarterback. And then at the time where you need to give him that big contract, he's able to prove it. He's able to show it. Hey, I got these guys around you. You had a great year. Now we're gonna give you that contract that you're looking for. But a lot of teams win like that, and the Eagles are putting together a really, really good team with the salary cap that they have, and this defense, especially in the trenches on both sides of the ball, is really going to dictate these games.
I think to your point there, people keeping in mind this isn't a business, and when you distribute your investments wisely, it really pays off. We've seen a lot of young quarterbacks make Super Bowl runs, a lot of cheap quarterbacks on rookie contracts. That's a great. That was not even something that was crossing my mind, Matt. So that's honestly a great metric to point out. There is that they've even if it does fail and they fall flat on their face, I mean, they've made some smart investments for the future. You're set for the draft in the future. If Hurts is a hit, you can keep building around him. If not, you kind of got an out and everything. You can invest elsewhere. You're not losing a lot of money on him. So last thing I kind of want to wrap up are these win totals. They're projected right now for about 9 wins. I think that is perfectly reasonable. We talked about this a little bit before the show. I think they win the division. When I look at that schedule, they got the second easiest schedule right now. Part of that is because the NFC East is overall fairly weak, right? But they've got a very good draw overall. When you look at the schedule, you're going to have some things that don't go your way. But overall, they're projected to finish second behind Dallas. I just feel like if Hurts takes just minor progressions, they're going to win this division, right? Their average line throughout the season is -1.5, which is indicative of a strong team. They're very strong in the trenches, which is always going to matter regardless of level. So I think they win the division. 9 wins might be what it is to win that division, right? So in terms of a win total, that could be on point. But how are you guys feeling? Rob, why don't you kind of take it away with the division and toss it over to Matt and Nicky? Just not even from a Philadelphia Eagles fan view, how do you feel about this team, and can they actually win the NFC East?
Well, like I just said before, I'm actually very excited to watch them this year. I think, like you just said, they have a very legitimate chance to win the division. And what Nick was saying earlier before we started recording is, and I just looked at the schedule actually, realistically, if you win the games you should win, I think you're looking potentially at a 10, 11, 12 win team, which I think will certainly get the job done in the NFC East. Not to say that Dallas isn't very talented as well, but I think it's between them two right now. I think obviously Washington just added Wentz as their quarterback, right? So I think they have potential shot, but I don't think they're where Philly is right now. I'm very excited to see it. I really am. This offense is explosive. I think it's one of those teams where you're excited to use them in the new Madden. Like, they're just very explosive, a lot of fun. Hurts is a mobile QB, which is always my favorite to use in that game. But just all joking aside, I think they have a legitimate shot to win this division. They made the playoffs last year. And again, we talked about their ability to win difficult games, and they went up against the Bucks, which was a tough draw, but I could seriously see them making a little playoff run this year. I know that's a long way down the road, but it starts with the division, and I'm pumped to see it. I don't typically lock in on the NFC East. I'm an AFC East guy, but Depending on how the Jets do, I might have to swing over to NFC East to check them out. But I am very excited for it. Yeah, I think they have a legitimate shot, and I'm excited. Can't wait.
I think 9 wins is pretty accurate. I mean, I don't think it's going to take more than 9, maybe 10, 11 wins to win this division, depending on how Dallas comes out. But I think the opportunity is very legitimate. It's there for them to take. It's ride or dies on them at this point. But yeah, 9 wins is pretty accurate. If I had to put a number on it, I'd probably say 11. I'd probably be very disappointed with 9. Even though I think 9 would win us this division.
Well, I'll be on record here saying that I'll be very disappointed with 9 wins looking at this schedule. Real quick, obviously, Nicky and I will get in more into this on our own pod and throughout and our before preseason and before week 1. But real quickly, I got them at 12 wins just by looking at it. And the first 4 games, you really need to ride this train, this off-season hype. Off-season acquisitions hype that you got, and you got to take care of business in those first 4 games. Going at Detroit, Minnesota, Washington, and Jacksonville, those got to be four wins going to play Zona, which Zona is going to be one of the top teams probably in the NFC. Again, who knows with the Kyler Murray situation. But if you can get the ball rolling and get firing on all cylinders, start off hot, it'll be a big year for them.
Let's hope Kyler Murray doesn't study that week.
Yeah.
Is he going to open the playbook?
Didn't they just take that out of his gloves?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But the last point I'll make is saying, all 3 of us kind of hovered around that 12-win mark. If you're at 12 wins, you're likely the top of towards the top of the NFL, right?
I was going to say, you're a top seed.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if that's the case, I like their odds in the playoffs. If they're going 12 wins, maybe get a high seed, get a couple home games. I think that could be a big help. But yeah, I mean, it kind of just hit me like 12 wins is usually where 1 or 2 of the top teams finishes. And it is doable. I'm very excited to see how it plays out and kind of come back to this conversation.
The only thing I don't like is that they don't play a lot of the top teams in the NFC. Obviously they play Dallas twice, but looking at their schedule, if Zona's up there, they play Green Bay, but other than Minnesota might be up there, and maybe New Orleans, but it's not like you're playing the Tampa, the Rams, these other teams that were there at the end last year, like the 49ers. Who knows what Trey Lance is going to look like, but they're going to have a good, solid team. You want to try to hit a stretch where you hit those teams a little bit, just to kind of gauge where you're at.
Cody, where do you got Dallas at win-loss this year?
I think Dallas will be fine in that 9 to 10 win range. Honestly, I think the winner of this division is sitting right at 10 wins. I don't think the Eagles get to 12, and that's purely because of variance. That division, they always seem to split. A lot of the teams do, even though I think the Eagles are actually favored, and they're projected for about 9.5 wins, but they're currently actually favored in 11 games overall. So you guys sitting there at that 11-12 mark, you're really on point. The reason I don't think they get to 11 or 12 is I think 10-7 is a perfect mark, and I think it wins the division. If they get to 11, I think that is a great year. And again, some of that's based on variance. Wentz is, don't get me wrong, I don't think Washington wins the division, but with Wentz and the way Ron Rivera coaches his team and styles his play, it's tough to beat them. That could potentially be a loss, right? The Washington's going to be right there at 7 to 8 wins max. I would be stunned if Washington got to 9 and 8. Not totally stunned, but it would be surprising. I think they get to that 7-win range. Part of that is them likely beating Philly and Dallas once, whether they beat one of them once or they split with both of them. That would bring the win totals down. You guys are looking at that as a path to 12 wins. If they split that, they're sitting there at 10 or 11. And if Philly has lost, I think 5 straight to Dallas, or is it 4 of the last 5 or 5 straight? But I know they got swept last year. You guys will have to double check me on that. If they just split with Dallas, or if they turn out to sweep Dallas, that's flipping the card, right? That's taking them to that 10-7, 11-6 that Dallas has been at over the course of the last few years. that's what helps them win that division. And that's what I think happens. I think even if they split in the division with some other teams, if they can just split with Dallas, and Dallas, I think they get to 9 or 10 wins, but they're so predictable. And I just don't see them coming out of that. Like, what has Mike McCarthy shown me that says, oh, I'm going to adjust and restyle my whole offense? He hasn't. It's going to be the same thing. Like, Dallas is super talented and they're going to be fine, but they're going to get found out.
It's going to be tough for McCarthy too, because he's going to be playing on the hot seat all year.
100%. 100%. I think the Eagles are just playing with house money this year. Over teams that get hyped up in the offseason, that's something I always look out for, because it's so tough to live up to those expectations. That's my thing with the Eagles this season, is Dallas has actually had a quiet offseason, which for once I think is a great thing. Eagles are getting the hype. So for some reason that oversets expectations, and a 9 or 10 win season might look like a fail, but it's a 500 league. Like, you look at most of those games, they should win, but let's not forget, it's a 500 league. Like Minnesota and New Orleans, those are still, until Philly shows us they can do what we've talked about, those are
toss-ups.
Yeah, they're toss-ups. They're equals until, like, we see this progressions out of Hurts.
We all remember the last time, the Eagles.
And they beat New Orleans last year.
We all remember the last time the Eagles were the super team, right?
Yeah.
All right. Slower roll here.
Hey, if Vegas has anything to say about it, and history has anything to say about it, the NFC East is going to have a new division champ. So
I honestly, that's part of it too.
They haven't had one since 2004, since the Eagles won back to back.
All right, I got a question going off this 12-win prediction from both of you. So if the Eagles finish with 12 wins, that means Hurts had an awesome year, Sirianni had an awesome year. What's more likely? Hurts MVP, Sirianni Coach of the Year. They're both sitting around the same right now with Vegas odds. Hurts plus 2,000, Sirianni plus 1,800. Wild odds, but if you guys are taking the over on the 9 and saying that they're going to finish with 12 wins, what's more likely?
I think Sirianni Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Because I just think that the rest of the team will have more of a factor on that record, more than I think Jalen Hurts will, even though I think the record does kind of live and die on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. But I just think the way we've shored up our defense, I think it's going to be a little bit of a game changer on that side of the ball. So I'm going to go with Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and I think that if his numbers are even that great for a 12-win season, I still think that they're going to be comparable to other quarterbacks in the league, especially like this AFC West is stacked. And who knows, Herbert might have a year that no one's seen before. Josh Allen's still knocking at the door. Like, I think if you get a wild card team that wasn't supposed to be in it last year from 9-8 to 12 wins, and I think Sirianni should get the nod for Coach of the Year more than Hurts is going to get a nod for the MVP. Unfortunately, but
plus 1,800.
Sirianni plus 1,800.
What's Salah?
I don't know. I don't have it up, but I would
Salah
imagine
needs the Eagles schedule.
Yeah, Salah does need the Eagles schedule.
I think we're 26th on or the Jets are 26th most difficult, or strength of schedule, however you put it. They're towards the more difficult side.
Yeah,
it's always a climb.
100%. Yeah, you gotta climb out of the dredges. Last thing I'll say on this is Eagles look like they were about to go into just like bottom of the barrel of the NFL. I know a lot of times Howie, he gets people give him a hard time, but for you guys to come out of this and now legitimately look like you could take this division if Hurts even is slightly improved, I think that's pretty incredible. Like, you guys were looking like you were going to be a 4, 5, 6 win team for a couple of years, and 9-8 last year, and now projected for 9, 10 wins this year. I think that's pretty solid just from an organizational standpoint.
I even give him a ton of credit with the Sirianni hire, because I'll tell you right now, when he hired that man, I was not sold. So, I mean, Howie sees a lot of things that I guess others don't.
Well, was even one of the guys they wanted. He came in at the last minute, but you can't deny, like, you can, all the Eagles fans and even me, we've been skeptical about Howie, but you can't deny the fact that he somewhat put a team together to win a Super Bowl in 2017. And the guy wins drafts. and obviously makes good trades and is always thinking, is always on his feet, always adapting. I mean, that's what you gotta like about your GM, you know.
Yep, 100%. So it's going to be interesting watching the Eagles this season. It's going to be more fun listening to you guys over at the Eagle Up podcast. Check them out, rosterupmedia.com/Eagles. You can find them at Eagle Up Pod on Twitter. Like, rate, subscribe on Apple, Spotify. You can find their playlist on our YouTube channel. Matt, Nicky, I appreciate you guys jumping on for the Around the NFL podcast. Looking forward to listening to you guys soon.
Good talking to you guys.
Thanks,
Go
guys.
Birds.